be a stream of income going into the banks, and that also means that whole neighborhoods' values will not go down because you're not peppered with these vacancies. He's right. Yeah. But too late. I mean, the bill is already there. You can't, 2 weeks ago, that might have been a good idea. And a lot of those kinds of ideas were floating around 2 weeks ago. But you all know how Congress works, and you all know how politics works. And you are now in the 11th hour and 59th minute. And the question is this bill going to go through or not? Yes.
Why have the Democrats in Congress been so unsuccessful at getting those ideas into the bill?
Why have the Democrats in Congress been so unsuccessul at getting ideas like this into the bill? Well, they originally tried. After Bernanke took his 3 pages, and it was clear that Congress hated it, the Democrats did try to have a provision in the bill that would make it easier for distressed homeowners to either have a bankruptcy process to reorganize under bankruptcy, a kind of informal bankruptcy, or to actually get some direct aid. And the mortgage banking industry and a lot of Wall Street houses and lobbyists put up such a fuss, a huge fuss. They said that is a deal breaker.
So they're just lobbyists, they're not voters.
Well, look at, I think one of the big problems with Washington, and I don't think there's any single person in this room who will not agree with me, is that you now have, by contrast to what Washington was when I first went there in '68, or what it was when I was at the Federal Trade Commission in '76, or what it was even when I was Secretary of Labor in 1993, you now have it totally dominated, totally, by lobbyists from either big corporations or big trade associations or big finance. In fact, there's a PhD candidate in political science who I'm working with who's actually been doing some studies. And one of the things he has been doing is going out to the major lobbyists on Capitol Hill and asking them who their opponents are, their major opponents on most of their bills. And interestingly, the major opponents that most of the big lobbyists face on Capitol Hill are other major lobbyists for other big corporations or other big trade associations or other big financial institutions. In that study, public interest organizations, environmental organizations, and others don't even show up at all. Not even unions show up. We used to teach in political science in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the late Nelson Polsby, some of you remember. We used to talk about, and Nelson Polsby was one of the progenitors of the idea of pluralism, that everybody belonged to at least 1 or 2 or 3 overlapping interest groups. We call them special interests, but they roughly represented the public interest because they represented so many different groups. And it was groups among groups and everybody. It was kind of a representation of a plurality of Americans by virtue of the kinds of different groups they belonged to. And labor countervailed, to use John Kenneth Galbraith's term, was countervailing power against business. And you had small business against large business, and you had small towns and Kiwanis clubs, and you had a whole